Good morning/afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to welcome you to this presentation. Today, I will be discussing our research on exploring the uses and gratifications of YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok among undergraduate students. This is part of our work presented at the first International Conference on Multidisciplinary Innovation in Magelang, Indonesia, held on November 1st, 2025. My name is Kayode Sunday John Dada from the Federal University of Education in Kaduna, Nigeria, and I am joined by my colleague Yunana Gladys MUSA from Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, Kaduna State. Over the next few minutes, I will walk you through the key aspects of our study, including the motivations behind it, the methodology, and our main findings. But for now, let's dive into the topic itself and see what insights we've uncovered. In this slide, I'll give you some background on the study. First, social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok are now a big part of student life. They influence how students communicate, entertain themselves, and even learn new things. Specifically, at ATBU, we see that students use these platforms heavily. However, there's been limited research on how exactly these platforms impact their academic performance. That's a notable gap in our understanding. Most existing studies haven't really explored the specific roles each platform plays within Nigerian universities. So, our study is based on the uses and gratifications theory, which was introduced by Katz and colleagues back in 1973. This theory helps us understand why students choose certain platforms and what they seek to gain from them. Our main goal here is to examine students' preferences, their reasons for using these platforms, and how these might affect their academic life. We also want to understand their motivations behind social media usage. All of this is to give a clearer picture of the actual impact social media has in this context. Let's talk about how social media has really transformed student behavior in several key ways. First, it has changed the way students learn, collaborate, and manage their time. For example, YouTube, which started in 2005, was created by Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and Jod Karim, who were former PayPal employees. It was originally designed as a simple platform for uploading and watching videos. Over time, students began using YouTube mainly for educational content, like tutorials and lectures, which support self-directed learning. Then there's Instagram, founded in 2010 by Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger. It's a photo-sharing app with filters, encouraging creative visual expression. Among students, Instagram became a space for visual storytelling, social engagement, and sharing their lifestyles, helping them build connections and express their identities. And more recently, TikTok, launched in 2018 by ByteDance, which was created through the merger of Douyin and Musical, Lie. It's a short-form video platform driven by AI personalization. Students primarily use TikTok for entertainment, creative expression, and participating in trends, offering a fun way to relax and showcase their creativity. These platforms have really reshaped how students interact with content and each other, aligning perfectly with our theme of digital transformation in education. Let's take a closer look at the research questions guiding this study. First, we're interested in understanding what students perceive as the academic benefits of platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. These platforms are often seen as entertainment, but many students also use them for learning and accessing information. Next, we want to explore how much these platforms might distract students from their studies. Are they a helpful resource, or do they tend to divert attention away from academic work? We're also curious about how students use these platforms for their academic tasks, whether they're watching tutorials, searching for information, or maybe even collaborating with classmates. Another important point is whether the use of these platforms leads to missed deadlines or unfinished assignments. Do they have a tangible impact on academic performance? Finally, we're examining the motivations behind platform usage. Are students engaging with these apps primarily for learning, entertainment, or creative expression? Understanding these motivations helps us see why students turn to these platforms in the first place. All of these questions tie into the broader theme of how social media influences student learning and academic habits. For our methodology, we used a design known as a quantitative descriptive survey, which helps us understand the characteristics and opinions of our population in a structured way. To measure attitudes and perceptions, we employed a 5-point Likert scale, allowing respondents to express their level of agreement or disagreement on various statements. Our population consisted of 10,000 undergraduates at ATBU for the 2024-2025 academic session, which provided a broad base for our study. From this population, we selected a sample size of 387 students, calculated using Yamin's formula from 1967, with a 95% confidence interval and a 5% margin of error. To ensure our sample accurately represents different groups within the population, we used stratified random sampling based on gender, age, and academic level. This approach helps us capture diverse perspectives and reduces bias. The instrument we used was a 30-item Likert questionnaire, which demonstrated good reliability with a Cronbach's alpha of 0.85. This means our instrument is both consistent and reliable for capturing respondents' attitudes. For data collection, we utilized Google Forms, which allowed us to gather responses over 4 weeks, achieving a response rate of 95%. This method was efficient and convenient, especially given the current technological trends. Finally, for analysis, we employed SPSS version 26. We focused on calculating means, standard deviations, and frequency distributions to interpret the data accurately and provide meaningful insights into the responses. Now, let's take a closer look at the summary of our findings. First, regarding perceived academic benefits, Instagram and TikTok scored quite low, with averages of 2.36 and 2.3 respectively. More than half of the respondents viewed these platforms as having minimal educational value. When it comes to distraction, both platforms had moderate scores, Instagram with a mean of 2.64 and TikTok close behind at 2.63, indicating that users perceive them as more distracting than YouTube. Moving on to YouTube, it clearly stands out in terms of academic utility. It scored high on usefulness for academic tasks, with a mean of 3.74, and for accessing academic information, with a mean of 3.85. Supporting this, over 70% of respondents use YouTube for tasks, and about 75% rely on it for information retrieval. In contrast, Instagram and TikTok showed limited utility for formal learning, with lower scores, around 2.7 for task use and roughly 2.3 for accessing information, highlighting their peripheral role in academic activities. When we look at missed deadlines, YouTube again performs well, with a mean of 3.59 for perceived academic benefit and a low distraction score of 2.09. Interestingly, a majority, about 60%, agree that it helps with learning, and over 80% disagree that it interferes with studying. Now, considering our demographic profile, our respondents consisted of 387 students with a nearly even gender split, just over half males and just under half females. Most of them, around 60%, were between 21 and 25 years old, which is typical for undergraduates at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. Smaller groups were aged 16 to 20 and 26 to 30, reflecting the usual student age range. Finally, looking at motivations for usage, we see clear platform-specific patterns. YouTube is primarily driven by a desire for learning, with a high motivation score of 3.95, but it scores lower on entertainment and creativity. Conversely, Instagram and TikTok are mainly used for entertainment and creative expression, with higher scores of 3.56 and 3.66 for entertainment, and 3.54 and 3.76 for creativity. This shows that these platforms are more aligned with personal and effective needs, rather than academic purposes. Overall, these findings reinforce how different platforms serve distinct roles in students' lives, especially in balancing academic utility and entertainment. In conclusion, this study really highlights how social media can be a double-edged sword in higher education. When used intentionally, these platforms have the power to transform the way we learn, improve digital literacy, and even boost academic success. Specifically, our focus on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok among undergraduate students at ATBU in Bochai shows just how crucial these platforms are in shaping both academic and social experiences today. What we found is that students aren't just passively scrolling, they're engaging actively and selectively, using social media to meet different needs. These needs fall into cognitive, emotional, and social categories. Now, among these platforms, YouTube stands out as a real cornerstone for academic utility. It scores highly in areas like perceived academic benefit, use for academic tasks, access to information, and even motivation to learn. For example, it has a mean score of 3.85 for access to information and 3.95 for learning motivation, which are quite significant. At the same time, YouTube shows low levels of distraction and minimal impact on missed deadlines, with mean scores around 2.09. This suggests that students see it as a helpful, focused tool rather than a distraction. This positioning makes YouTube a powerful enabler of self-directed learning. Its vast repository of educational content really supports students, especially in environments where resources may be limited. So overall, social media, when used wisely, can be a game changer for education, helping students learn more effectively and independently. Now, let's look at some recommendations to enhance our use of social media in academic settings. First, integrating YouTube into our curricula can be highly beneficial. Research shows that YouTube has a high academic utility, with scores ranging from 3.74 to 3.85. So I suggest we incorporate carefully curated educational videos into our courses. This can really boost learning outcomes for our undergraduate students by making lessons more engaging and accessible. Next, there's a clear need for the university to develop official Instagram accounts dedicated to academic content. Currently, the benefit of Instagram for academic purposes is quite low, with a mean score of 2.36. But we can tap into its visual appeal to share important updates, resources, and achievements more effectively. Creating these accounts will help us communicate better and foster a stronger academic community online. Moving on, fostering peer-led learning communities on YouTube is another key strategy. The motivation for students to learn through YouTube is quite high, with a mean of 3.95, so I recommend that the student union promote the creation of student-run YouTube channels. These can serve as collaborative spaces where students share knowledge, discuss ideas, and support each other's learning outside the classroom. Regarding social media management, we should also promote time management workshops. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok, while popular, have moderate distraction levels, scores around 2.63 to 2.64, so offering workshops can teach students and staff how to use these tools responsibly without letting them interfere with academic responsibilities. Finally, encouraging responsible TikTok use is crucial. The Student Representative Council, in partnership with student groups, can run media literacy campaigns to help students understand how to balance entertainment with academic priorities. The perceived benefit here is quite high, averaging 3.66, so guiding students to manage their TikTok activity can minimize academic interference while still allowing them to enjoy the platform responsibly. These recommendations, when implemented thoughtfully, can help us leverage social media's strengths while mitigating its drawbacks, aligning perfectly with our overall goal of integrating digital tools into effective learning strategies. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share these insights with you. Remember, the key points we've discussed, whether it's the importance of innovation, teamwork, or strategic planning, are all essential to achieving success. I hope you leave here feeling inspired and equipped to apply these concepts in your own work. Once again, thank you for being such an engaged audience. I look forward to seeing how you all implement these ideas moving forward.